Howdy, it's Kyle with some tips for white folks who are interested in visiting West Africa. And right away, I want to say I'm not trying to be clickbaity or controversial, but if you are white visiting the region, you're certainly going to be noticeable. So I'm going to talk about some things you might experience. I've had a chance to visit the region multiple times. I spent 3 weeks between Senegal and the Gambia on one trip, and a second trip 3 weeks between Ivory Coast and Benin, and enjoyed my experiences both times so much that I'll be going back to West Africa again this year, but this time going to Ghana and Togo. So I want to talk about things you might experience in the big cities, some of the medium-sized towns, places that get some tourists, some places that don't see tourists at all, and small villages, because your experiences are going to be different in each one. And unfortunately, there was one town where I experienced some pretty, maybe some racist stuff against me, but other than that place, being white, wasn't any kind of hindrance to me. But I do want to talk about some stuff. Again, not trying to be controversial, but if you are going to be white visiting the region, there are some things you're going to want to know, because you'll be sticking out like a sore thumb at a foot fetish convention. Okay, I want to show you what part of the continent I'll be discussing. So this is what's referred to as West Africa here. I visited Senegal and the Gambia, which are here. Ivory Coast, Benin, over here, Ghana and Togo in between those two. So these are the countries I'll be talking about, and only this region, because this is a big continent, a lot of sub-regions, a lot more tourism in East Africa, a lot of white folks, a lot more tourism that live in Southern Africa. This is more of the Muslim Arab part of the continent. So tourism is pretty big throughout a lot of the continent, but not right here. So you have very few tourists here. It's often considered one of the most difficult parts of the world in which to travel. I mean, I don't know about that, but this is the world I'll be talking about. So it's not Africa in general, specifically just West Africa, because your experiences are going to be quite a bit different in places like here, or up here. And if you want a beautiful map of Africa or many other places, you can check out Mirway Maps. That's who make this map. In my videos, there's a link in the description down there for a nice coupon code for a discount off your purchase. Check out beautiful ones like this, all the states, different countries. But yeah, let's get back to talking about white folks going to West Africa. I want to first state that some of the things I'm going to mention are not so much because you're white, but because you're a tourist. But because you are white, you're guaranteed to be a tourist. And it's also going to be assumed at first you're European. There aren't many Americans or Canadians that visit West Africa. Most of the visitors are people visiting from the former colonial powers. So in Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, and Benin, it's mostly people from France or maybe other French-speaking people from Belgium or Switzerland. And then in the Gambia and Ghana, former British colonies, many folks from the UK, but also many English-speaking people from Germany or Netherlands will go down to the former British colonies because they speak English. But that is one spot where being American does work in your favor. So once people found out I was American, they were like, oh, that's really cool. We don't see many Americans here. Then I pulled the California card, and that scored me some more points as well. So that is one spot where, I was not trying to hide the fact that I was American. I dressed very American when I was visiting there. So, but it will be assumed you are European at first. So the first thing you'll probably encounter is needing to get a taxi. You're going to land at the airport and need a ride to wherever you're going. And right away, you're going to find out that it's not going to be hard to find a taxi. So, you're an obvious looking fare, you're a tourist, you're probably going to not haggle with the driver, and you may even tip at the end. So a lot of taxi drivers will approach you. You might not want to go with the very first one, because the first one might quote you a really ridiculous high price. But many places there's a fixed fare. So in the Gambia, you just land at the airport. It's a fixed fare to this part of the country, that part, whatever it is. So not really trying to rip you off, but you're not going to have any issues trying to find a taxi at the airport or just kind of walking around. And in fact, when I was walking around some cities, I wouldn't even be looking for a taxi. They would just slow down and roll the window down. Hey, need a ride? No, it's okay. Or other time, the taxi would pass me, slam on the brakes, reverse. Hey, need a ride? So, you never have to worry about going out for one, because they'll find you. In terms of riding public transit, it'll depend on which country you're in and where you're trying to go. But if you're talking about using the air-conditioned motor coach buses, the nice ones, kind of like Greyhounds, that's the best way to get around to other parts of the country. In all these countries, it can be pretty chaotic trying to get the ticket. So especially in the bigger cities like Dakar and Abidjan, you would go to a spot to pay for something, then you get a little stub, and you go to another place, in that same general complex to get your ticket, and then somewhere else to get it stamped. Is really confusing. I speak French, sort of, but I was having some struggle. But you won't have any issues. People will approach you and, do you need help? I can show you how to do this. You got to go here, got to go here, you got to go here. And yeah, they're probably going to want a couple bucks in return, but it will definitely be worth it. So I haven't had any issues whatsoever. People seeing me needing some help, helping me out, but trying to rip me off at all. I know this often concerns like people, they're only helping you because they want money. No, I mean, people do want to help. They might expect a couple of dollars, but it'll generally be worth it. People do generally want to help when they see an obvious tourist obviously struggling with something like a pretty chaotic bus station. Okay, so what's it like walking around one of the bigger cities? When I travel, I've been by myself, so I'm like the white guy walking around some of these areas. So I'm going to show a couple of clips of me walking through some markets in a couple of different countries. So this first one I'm showing is of me walking through the Sandaga market in Dakar, Senegal, a huge city, very modern cosmopolitan city. So the old-timey market like this is kind of a relic. But you can see I'm walking around here and nobody cares. And that's kind of what you'll experience in a big city. Just like anywhere else, there's so many people around, no one knows each other. You're just a white dude walking around. So you might get an occasional double take, but for the most part, people don't really care. So in the biggest cities, you do have a small expat population that might be white. You have a tiny number of tourists that are visiting these places. So it's not completely uncommon to see a white person. So you're not going to be attracting a ton of attention. Some of the people in the stalls might be selling something that might be of interest to a tourist, might say, hey, come check out my shop or whatever. But I mean, you're not going to be harassed. It's a big city. No one knows anybody that might bump into other people, might bump into, again, no one knows each other. It's a big city. They're not going to really notice you either. Okay, so what about a medium-sized city that doesn't see many tourists at all? It doesn't have much of an expat community. So here's a video of me walking around Serekunda in the Gambia. This is the largest urban center in the country, and this is a place that sees very few tourists. There are a handful of tourists in the beach parts of the Gambia, but right here, I mean, you can watch this video. It goes on for maybe half an hour. I'm obviously not going to show the whole thing, but you won't see a single other white person in the entire video. But you'll also see nobody double taking, looking at me like, who is this guy? So again, it's a combination of a lot of people, no one knows each other. You're just kind of walking around, but there are enough tourists in the Gambia, so a single white person isn't that crazy. But you are going to get a little more attention when you go to some of these side paths in the market because you're such a novelty almost, and not many folks in these stalls are selling things that are of interest to tourists, or selling things that are more interest to locals, housewares, food, or whatever. So, but the few that are selling maybe artistic things, or maybe clothes, things that a tourist might want, again, they might say, come check out my shop kind of things. But even in some of these areas where you don't see many tourists, if it's a big crowd, you might stand out in a crowd, but no one's really going to pay much attention to you. Okay, so what about places that do see a little bit of tourism? So these might be some more of your beach resort type places, the coast in the Gambia, the Mbor Sali area in Senegal. You also have some coastal parts of Benin and Togo and Ghana and Ivory Coast, Grand Bassam specifically in Ivory Coast. So what happens here when there's a handful of tourists and you're obviously one of them? So you will get a little more pushy type vendors here. I mean, this isn't because you're white. If you're a visitor, you can be African American, Canadian, or whatever. They're still going to be kind of pushy towards you too at those stalls. So, again, it's going to be kind of like how it is in other places where I've traveled, where it's a reasonably poor place. They see a tourist, you've got money. So, they might be, I never faced any kind of really bad like harassment, kind of like just people that won't leave you alone. But you are going to get a little more, come see my shop. Hey, no, come check this out. I have better stuff in that stall. I made this here. It's not made in China, kind of stuff. So, a little bit of harassment there, but not bad. And you might find some really cool stuff too anyway. Okay, so what about the small villages that don't see any tourists at all? So this is where you're going to be really standing out and really going to be the center of attention. So I walked through a handful of small villages in each of these countries, and every single time I was quite the attraction. So people would come out of their homes and say hi. They see this, white guy walking around. It's kind of weird. So they come out and say, hey, hello, bonjour, or whatever it is. But little kids are going to swarm you. So you may have seen photos and image or video of, some white influencer going to Africa and they got the little kids around them. And I mentioned this in another video. It's always seemed really cringy to me, like they're just going for a photo op. It's just, oh my God, you're going to go to Africa and do that. But that does happen. So you'll be swarmed by kids. And what made me so happy about that was that the first question they always asked, no matter where I was, whatever country this was, the first question was always, where are you from? That was always it. Never like, your name. It was always like, where are you from, then your name. But just from a geography standpoint, I thought it was so cool that they were most interested in where I was from. America. Oh, America. California. Oh my God, California. So it was pretty cool, but you are going to be the center of attention. So one thing that's important to note, a bunch of little kids surrounding you, kind of make sure the parents are around or something. That's, you don't want to just be around a bunch of little kids on your own. That could be kind of weird. White folks going to Africa, returning with a little kid is unfortunately a reasonably common thing. So just make sure if you're going to be interacting with kids that there are adults around. But yeah, they will swarm you, and not in like a do something for me, buy me something, give me something. I've seen posts and things online of that's the only reason these kids approach you is they're asking for. None of these kids ask me for anything. They ask me, where am I from? And basic conversation. Again, after that, what's your name? It's so cool you're here. The parents will come and talk to you. Some of the adults like, oh, that's so cool you're here. We haven't seen an American since 19 blah blah kind of thing. So, but you will be absolutely the center of attention. But these areas that don't have tourism, it's not like it's vendors, people talking to you. It's just, regular people that live there. And depending on the country, especially if it's one of the predominantly Muslim countries, you might very well likely be invited into someone's house for a meal or for tea and bread. I was invited to people's compound, they call it compound in the Gambia, multiple times for tea and bread. I mean, what an honor that is. So just be prepared. There was another time where I had to decline because I was invited for lunch and I knew they were eating fish and sitting out all day in the sun. And I had to find an excuse out because I couldn't refuse to eat if I actually went there. So, so there's stuff like that. You are going to be invited to, people's homes if you're walking around by yourself. And I'd imagine if you're being like a stupid, obnoxious tourist, probably not. But if you're being respectful, talking to people, then you might very well be invited into a home. Earlier, I had mentioned how if you're at a transit center or somewhere that's really chaotic and somebody helps you out, they might expect $1 or something. But in other scenarios, if you're just kind of walking around town and you're obviously lost, or maybe you're just the stupid tourist doing something stupid, and somebody offers help, they're not looking for anything. So I see comments online that people will only help if they're looking for money. That's just not true. People are just genuinely kind, and because you are an obvious tourist looking like this, people are, again, just genuinely kind, want to help you out because they're so happy that people are visiting. Because most of the things you hear about West Africa or Africa in general, it's always negative. So it's always a smiling face of people that are happy that you're there. They're proud to show you their country, and if they can help you out, make it easier for you, maybe show you how the bus route is or other stuff like that. Not at the bus station itself, but just kind of showing you how things work. People aren't just seeing you as an ATM and you're just throwing money around for anybody that helps. People are just super, super friendly and genuinely want to help. And because you look like this, you're obviously a tourist. People might be more willing to help because they just generally want to be friendly and show you their country. Okay, so the talk of all of these friendly people I came across in all 4 of these countries is unfortunately going to be a segue into talking about the one town in these 4 countries where it wasn't very hospitable at all and experienced some kind of racist stuff. So again, I don't want this to represent the entire region. This is literally one town in one of these 4 countries, but the town I'll be talking about is Bouaké in Ivory Coast. And this is a medium-sized country, about 500,000 people right in the middle of the country. Very few tourists go there. That's why I wanted to check it out, because just to see what a place is like isn't touched at all by tourists. To get to this town from Abidjan on the coast, I took a really nice Greyhound-style motor coach, and I got there from the station where somebody helped me out, like I was saying before. A nice bus ride, 4 hours to this town, but I noticed something kind of strange right away on this bus. So there were only 4 empty seats on this ride, and there was only one other solo white traveler on there. 2 of the 4 empty seats were the ones next to me and one next to the other white dude. We were both kind of in the middle of the overall bus, and they would go maybe an hour, stop at the next town, a couple of folks get off, a couple more get back on, but nobody would ever sit next to the 2 of us. Finally, the bus was full, and somebody came on. The only empty seat was the one next to me. This dude had to sit next to me. He did, but as soon as he did, he was facing this way. He was facing into the aisle. I was at the window. He faced into the aisle, 90 degree angle. His back was very strange. And as soon as the bus stopped, someone else moved. He got up almost like as fast as he could, went to another seat. So I found it to be very strange. And because also, I noticed it with taxis, again, they'll slow down to stop you with one exception. If there's two or three people in there and there's still room for one more, they wouldn't stop. Ones that were empty would stop. And the few times I tried to flag one down, even if there was two people in there that could fit one more, they wouldn't stop. So the taxis and the big long distance buses, I had to ask, is public transit segregated in Ivory Coast? That was kind of the question I kept asking myself, because I mean, it seemed really weird. That guy felt really uncomfortable sitting next to me it was like torture for him to be sitting there like, oh my God, I can't be sitting here. Moved really quick right away. So if you're from Ivory Coast, you're familiar with it, let me know. Is it like unofficially segregated on public transit? Because it certainly does seem like that in taxis and buses. Okay, so then what else happened? I'm walking down the street in Bouake during the day, and while I'm walking down the street, I pass this other guy. He's like, "Hey, pink man." I'm thinking, pink man? So two things here. This is Ivory Coast, a French-speaking country. This guy sees me in English. "Hey, pink man." Like, what? And it just kind of caught me off guard. I thought it was kind of funny, actually. I wasn't offended by that. I was more offended by the fact he was trying to offend me. So I don't know what that was. I'm not sure if he thought maybe I might be French, so he can say pink man, and I wouldn't know what that was. But then, really strangely, after I kept walking, I didn't turn around, and he's like, "I know you heard me in English. I know you heard me." The dude picked me out as American. I don't know. So it's a little uncomfortable. Other situation in this town, I went to the grocery store to get me a can of Pringles and a Coke. That's just standard for me. You can get Pringles anywhere on earth, apparently. So I'm getting Pringles, Coke. I'm in the line at the grocery store. This woman just not even making eye contact just gets right in front of me. I'm about to go up to the spot you put this stuff on the rubber conveyor. She just walks right up, puts her stuff, doesn't even make eye contact with me, as if I'm not even there. She could tell I was in line. Something else happened in that same town at the ATM. So there's a bank with an ATM line to use it, because that's common that most of them don't work. So there's a long line for the one that does. I'm in line. Dude just cuts in front of me like I'm not even there. But in that situation, there were other folks behind me, and the dude behind me was like, hey, you go back, to the guy that cut in front of me. So, but I got the impression that it's perfectly okay to just cut in front of a white dude. So, I mean, it's kind of funny, honestly, but not really. But, and then another situation there, I was just kind of walking through the market, the same ones I would show videos of other places, but this one was just kind of some dirty looks, like I'm not supposed to be there, like I was trespassing. So it was a little uncomfortable, the experience in that town. So I hate to be like that, but it was rough. So if you're familiar with Bouake, again, nobody goes. It's not a tourist town. So if you happen to be white and you've been there, let me know what your experiences are. If you're black and you're familiar with it, let me know it. I mean, is there something? Is it like the Idaho of West Africa, or what is it? But one thing that was interesting is that at one point I was walking around, and this group of schoolgirls in their uniforms at a stoplight were waiting to cross the street. They start talking to me like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" They're like, "Where are you from?" "America." They're like, "Oh my God, America, California." "Oh my God." They were like super friendly to me. And I wanted to say like, thank you for being friendly, but I don't think a middle-aged white dude talking to some schoolgirls is a good look. So, but it was kind of just an uncomfortable feeling to be in this town. People were giving me dirty looks. I mean, they didn't want me there. So, if there's something about this town, or maybe just, I don't know, maybe something more about Ivory Coast and the other countries that was the only experience I had between these four countries, just that one town. So I don't want to have that be representative of the entire region, but that it did happen. So, and if you are a minority in the U.S., you're probably thinking, yeah, that's what we put up with every day, dude. Welcome to the club. But yeah, it kind of sucks. Now, I don't want to turn this into a rant against the Ivory Coast, but I do find it interesting that was the one place that had some issues, and it's also very, very untouristed, even compared to these other non-touristed countries. So these books are called Brat. These are Brat, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. These are really good travel books. And if you're going to go to a country that they write a book for, go. I mean, get the book, because It's incredible info. Look at the thickness of all these books, right? Look at the one for Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast is the same size as Ghana. So Abidjan is a huge city. It's very modern, very cosmopolitan. I mean, I was really genuinely impressed with Abidjan for being not that far behind the developed world, really. So, but for whatever reason, it's just not touristy. It didn't seem like they wanted tourists there. So I wasn't sure if it's because I was white or maybe touristy. It's probably racism, but I just find it just intriguing how these books cover everything, and I kind of felt the same way. Like, it's just not as touristy. It's probably the one of the 4 countries I've been to that I wouldn't go back to. And I hate to be so mean, but I do have to, say the things that happened to me, even if they were a little bit negative. So despite those 2 days of negative experiences, I've spent a total of 6 weeks between these 4 countries, and that was really it for the bad stuff. So I've enjoyed my time so much. Like I said before, I'll be going back again this year to the region, this time going to Ghana and Togo. And it'll be interesting because I've heard that Ghana is the easiest country in that region to visit. So we'll see. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, you've heard people say that West Africa is the most difficult part of the world in which to travel. I mean, there's no way it's more difficult than Central Asia, but I do know what that's in reference to. So if you're going to be road tripping through the region, going through all those notoriously corrupt border crossings, it could be an issue. It could be trying on you. But here's where, being white helps. I went through not border crossings, but a ton of police checkpoints, security checkpoints throughout the country. Every single time the cop would lean in, see a tourist, and just wave me through. So I would see the cops stop locals and truck drivers and argue back and forth. You see a hand with money go out from the car to the cop, and it's not like I want to be stopped and harassed by the police and have to pay a bribe, but there is a bit of a guilt factor when you're just being waved through all these checkpoints and the locals are having to pay bribes. But I mean, again, this video is about what's going to happen if you're white. You're going to be passed right through the checkpoints. So the overall theme I want to have is, if you're on the fence on whether or not you should visit West Africa, go. You'll have a wonderful time. And I think a lot of folks are worried about some crime and horrible things happening. But the cities there, even the big cities like Dakar and Abidjan, are not even as dangerous as the big cities in the U.S. I mean, I wouldn't walk around by myself at 3 a.m. in the big cities there, but I wouldn't do that in Kansas City either. So if you're worried about that kind of stuff, I wouldn't. People aren't going to, prey on you because you're an obvious tourist. Again, people are just really friendly. They'll want to help. And if you're concerned about the difficulties of visiting with maybe infrastructure, don't. I mean, the past 10 years have been some crazy improvements in infrastructure in the region. The roads are in really good shape. A lot of really new buses, like motor coach buses, new buses in the cities. Dakar has these brand new, really nice buses. There's a metro in Dakar, Senegal now. So the infrastructure is great. Getting around the countries is pretty easy. So the difficulties are not bad. If you have to cross the borders, maybe. But if you're worried about the crime, that kind of stuff, it's not an issue. If you're going to Liberia, then, I'd maybe worry about that. But for the countries I'm talking about here, the countries that people might actually want to go to if you're interested in visiting West Africa, it's safe, it's fine, it's fun, people are friendly, you'll have a great time. If you're on the fence, go. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up to let me know you approve, and subscribe to this channel if you're interested in learning more about geography from a nerd. But yeah, thanks for watching. Geography King, signing out. I want to give a special thanks to my Superior patrons for their support. If you're interested in becoming a Superior patron, or maybe just an Erie or Huron patron, check out my Patreon page. The link is in the description. As always, thank you very much.